Ladies and gentlemen, I am becoming increasingly sympathetic to the very common sentiment that centrists are a bunch of intellectually arrogant, spineless people who believe that if we just make the right argument and we just talk to people, then the world will change around us. And even though I am, of course, ironically, an enlightened centrist, unironically, part of what goes along with that absolute transcendence of the political dialectic of left and right, part of what goes along with that is the ability to still empathize with people who hate us enlightened centrists for being correct on every issue. So I have a lot of sympathy for people who take the perspective that people like Christopher Rufo and Destiny have on centrists.
One is because I think a lot of people that market themselves as center are legitimately spineless cowards and deserve to be called out. I don't ever identify as center anything because it's got such a bad reputation.
They maintain this position as the enlightened centrist. They feel like if they explain it well enough, they feel like if they go on a podcast, they feel like if they can, you know, write a jazzy paper, that the world will conform to their good thinking. That's never how it works.
Here's a really good quote my mom said to me when I was really young. She said, "Stevie, don't ever let your mind be so open that your brain falls out." And that's what I find that a lot of center people do.
That's not what she told me last night.
Sorry. Why are you like this?
God bless Lex Friedman and his holy centrist heart. Here is a key point that people need to understand. Rational dialogue and the use of logic and the engagement in Socratic discussion is not an end in and of itself. It can't be. Dialogue and good faith constructive discussion are very useful for sharpening your intellect, for sharpening your ideas, and trying to genuinely orient yourself towards truth. But there is a big difference between being oriented towards truth and having the right ideas and actually embodying those ideas and acting them out. Rational good faith dialogue is like the fire that forges a strong sword, but using that sword is a completely different skill that requires you to embody the insights you derive from that dialogue and then go act out in the world with those. The reason that someone like Destiny is so successful and effective is because while he is more than capable of engaging in calm, rational, and interesting discussion, he is just as capable of wrestling in the mud and calling someone a little bitch to their face. And whether you like it or not, this is actually a more authentic and more human way of communicating because it involves emotion. And I don't care how smart you think you are, if you do not understand that, technically speaking, rationality is subservient to and motivated by emotion, then you are living in a Socratic fantasy world. The high-minded centrist who speaks to other high-minded centrists in a calm, calculating, rational manner is genuinely very good at generating good ideas, but that is a god-awful method of communicating those ideas.
What they seem to have that we don't is a level of pathos that really pulls at people's heartstrings. Now, as a rhetorician, I'm all about ethos, logos, pathos, right? Credibility, logic, and emotion. But it seems to me, and well, and I'm speaking for myself, really, but I think I can speak for you too as well. We're less about the pathos and more about the logos and the ethos. We're talking about things because we liked reason and rationality. We have a healthy appreciation for those things, to the point where maybe we neglect the emotional. I'm not the biggest fan of emotions. I think they get in the way. But I'm wondering if that's a mistake. You know, perhaps we need to start spinning narratives that, pull on the heartstrings and get people to see us in a different light. Because right now, we're just these cold people who abide by nothing but logic and have no hearts. Thoughts?
Ooh. Eric, that's a very interesting point. And
now, the reason that I am making this whole video is because of this Bethany Mandel incident. Bethany Mandel is someone who is intelligent enough to write what I'm sure is a compelling book, but she unfortunately tripped up in a very non-trivial way.
Only 7% of Americans consider themselves very liberal, and probably fewer of them consider themselves to be woke. And so, when we talk about traditional...
What does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. Woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. Sorry, it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Now, Bethany Mandel made a mistake here. We all do it. But there is a reason that this mistake went viral and it catalyzed such a visceral reaction in people. She's coming on to discuss a serious issue, the indoctrination of children by a small number of far left-wing ideologues. And it's like, okay, you're a mother, you have kids, presumably this is like an emotionally salient issue for you, and yet you're just kind of oddly calm discussing things from this very academic, well, you know, the left wing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is this sterilized, kind of inhuman, robotic, cold, rational, well, we'll just discuss these issues even though they mean a lot to me and I'm this disembodied intellect. It's like, you can't market yourself like that, you can't act that way, and then also fail to define woke, which your whole book is centered around. And so that's combination of things cause this to go viral. Now, as far as defining woke, this is one of those questions that I think reeks of Socratic oversaturation. Everyone knows what woke means, even if people don't explicitly define it. It means some combination of being far left and being anti-capitalism and being fixated on the patriarchy, being obsessed with race or gender, or some mix and match combination of all those things. It doesn't have to be explicitly defined. Again, in good faith dialogue, it is useful to define words just like it's useful to fine-tune an instrument before you play it. But the idea that when we're speaking generally, we can't understand other people's ideas unless they explicitly define every single word they use is something that a socially inept high school debate team loser would put forward. When it comes to defining words, if you're going to remember one thing from this video, remember this. The inability to explicitly describe how you know something is true does not mean that it isn't true.
We have this delimited domain of explicit propositional knowledge, but partly because of the requirements for consistency and our finite nature, it can't be comprehensive.
There's a famous ruling on pornography that I believe the Supreme Court of the United States laid down, and one of the justices wrote something that's become infamous or famous, depending on how you look at it. He said, well, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. And that's a notion of the incomplete ability of the representational system to represent the contents of implicit perception, or the procedural system. You can know that you know something, but that doesn't mean you can describe why. It doesn't mean you can describe how you know it.
No, it's a misconception that when we make things explicit, we're closer to the truth. Because often what we do when we make things explicit is that we conflate half a dozen or more different considerations that our intuitive and unconscious minds are able to weigh remarkably effectively. We substitute for that holistic vision a single thing that it collapses into the explicit statement that we make.
I don't buy that there's anyone who doesn't know what the word woke means, any more than I don't buy that there's people that don't understand what far right means. Yeah, it's admittedly generalized, and there's no one definition that fits all cases. But yeah, racial supremacist, authoritarian, something like that. If we're gonna have a dialogue and have a genuine Socratic discussion, we can define it more in detail. But if we're just talking in a talking head news clip type situation, it's stupid to play this game that we don't know what these words mean. And so the point of this video is that what a true enlightened centrist does, me, is I don't call myself an enlightened centrist other than with a hint of unironic irony. And I don't try to go into these intellectual debates in discussions just approaching them as ideas. I am a real person, I have real motivations for why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm not going to shy away from that. And the moment that I start pretending I'm a disembodied intellect above everyone as I analyze these things through a logical lens, then I really am a enlightened centrist spineless coward, but I'm not. I'm an enlightened centrist. I don't know, something. But I'm not that. I don't believe the right answer lies in the middle of everything. I don't believe in pure neutrality. I believe that the far left, the woke, is capable of extreme stupidity, and so is the far right. And most people who have any common sense, most people in the majority, most everyday people who live real lives and don't have all the time in the world to sit on their ass and complain about these issues online, most of them are, by any normal person's definition, in the center. And I bet you they don't sit around defining words, they just refer to things generally, and anyone who's even remotely half honest knows what they mean. And so with all that in mind, I look forward to seeing you in the 2023 Enlightened Centrist tier list video I plan on doing soon. But other than that, good luck and Godspeed.